Hello, fellow writers. I'm Lewis. That over there is Tolkien, and you have found the Scripturient Society.
Welcome back, writers, to your favorite podcast all about writing. That over there is Karissa Harlow, aka Catherine, her dark alter ego, aka Lewis, and I am Ash and aka Tolkien. Welcome back. Just really quick start off right off the bat. I want everybody to take a moment to appreciate how delicious goldfish are.
Ah,
Yeah. I remembered that this week and I've been eating them and I'm just so pleased.
Yeah, I mean, you are not wrong. So, I mean, good reminder.
Yeah, just in case anyone out there is like, I really want a snack. It's time to turn to the classics, which is goldfish. No one's ever done it better than goldfish. It's the snack that smiles back.
It's true. You're not wrong. In college, we went to the grocery store once and got this enormous thing of goldfish, but then it was like gone within a couple weeks.
Probably, or less. I mean, because we all just ate so much I ate so much goldfish in college. And what's funny is, as a kid, for some reason, because my mom gave us such healthy food and seeing like other kids' lunches, I was always like, oh, there's like so much better. My mom got us goldfish, and so I had just assumed like goldfish are a healthy snack. Excuse me, so I did not appreciate them as much as a child as I should have, because then as an adult I was like, wait a minute, this is just delicious. It is perhaps a little bit healthier than some of the other snacks, but like significantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not potato chips, but it's not celery sticks, so
yeah, exactly. It's delicious. It says always baked with 100% real cheese, but here's how that can still be true. Not true is they could mean they put all the goldfish in the oven. They also put a piece of real cheese in the oven and it was baked with cheese. Like that's kind of stuff they pull off on here.
That's fair. Yeah, like free range chickens need just like a couple square feet to wander, and that's considered free range or something.
Or it's considered cage free. Yeah. Which is hysterical. Yeah, so you can't really believe what they're trying to sell you, but I'm okay with it for goldfish. I feel like no goldfish were hurt in the making, so I'm pretty confident in that.
It's true. It's not like they're a real goldfish in the middle, in the center. So
no, this is not on topic, but every time that I see in like a sitcom type show, there's like a gag where like somebody like swallows a live goldfish. It upsets me so badly. It's just, I'm disgusted. And I'm also horrified.
Everyone loses. The fish gets swallowed and the human has to swallow a live fish.
Yeah, it's so upsetting. And I know it's probably fake, right? I know that. But it's so
in the story, it's not. In the story, it's supposed to be real.
And it is so upsetting. Yeah, it's one of my least favorite TV gags. Anyways, that rant aside, Karissa, how's your week been?
My week's been good. I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast before, but I'm like a big Liam Neeson fan, and I've been watching some Liam Neeson movies.
Ooh, I did not know that about you.
I love him like so much. I basically like everything. Movie? Yes, you had me watch it. I was like, okay, I know good. Ash likes at least one of his movies. So.
I mean, Liam Neeson is excellent. He just is.
He is.
But he is Hannibal.
Yeah.
In that, if you guys haven't seen it, it's amazing.
I didn't know that he was in Schindler's List. I've never seen that.
Oh, is he? I haven't seen it.
Apparently he's like the main guy. I'm like, weird. I never knew that.
I haven't seen it because it looks sad.
I know. I'm like, you got to be mentally prepared for a movie about the Holocaust. So
100%.
And I'm not. But I watched Blacklight, which I think is pretty recent, and it was okay. It's not like his best, but it was entertaining. So if you guys are just looking for something and it pops up. But then yesterday I watched The Commuter. And I don't even care what the critical reviews are. I loved this movie. It was so good.
I'm so glad. I assume you've seen the Taken movies.
Yes, I do. I love Taken. I love Nonstop. What else? The Gray I really liked. And then the A-Team, of course. But I like The Commuter. So like I can't remember if I talked to you guys about this, but I watched a movie called Heist earlier this year with what's his name? The guy from The Walking Dead and Negan, and he's also like Dean and Sam's dad in Supernatural. It's like something Dean Morgan. He was in that, and Robert De Niro and a couple other people you guys would probably recognize. And The Commuter is very similar to that movie. And when I saw that movie on TV, I was like, gosh, I need more movies like that. It was so cool. And then I finally found this one, and it's Liam Neeson. So it was just all the things I wanted out of life.
That's amazing.
It was super good. Brief premise. It's about this guy who's just like a normal guy. I mean, he's an ex-cop, because, you know, he has to have skills, but he's a normal guy and he takes the train, like he commutes to work every day. And then on his way home from work one day, he gets involved in this like plot against his will. So
excellent.
It's so good. It's so
I like that plot. I like it a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, and it was just similar to Heist, which I also really loved. So that's kind of my highlight of the week, which is nice. I mean, I'm happy with it. So there's that.
Have you heard back from from your interview?
No, I don't think I'm going to. It's only been about a week and they said a couple weeks, so I'm not worried about it. But
gotcha.
I have gotten, I think it's 2 now, emails back from jobs I applied for that were essentially like saying, sorry, we found someone else. And on the one hand, I'm like, thank you for the politeness, because now I know. That's very nice. But also I was like, now I'm like, I forgot that you could be rejected in ways that weren't querying. So I was like, this is a strange feeling. Like, I'm not as upset like emotionally, but I'm upset in a different way. And I'm like, great, it's good to know there's still a range of emotion outside of just pure misery, you know?
Good to know I can still experience disappointment.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been fun. But I appreciate that they were being very polite about it. So that was cool. So
that is nice. That's so funny. Well, not a bad week then.
Yeah, not too bad. How was your week?
It's pretty good. I'm trying to think. I rediscovered goldfish, as previously mentioned, so that's been great. I've been eating so much sour food that I literally got like giant blisters on the middle of my tongue. Nice. Because I can't stop. And Javi came home and he brought me like a bunch of like Warhead stuff, like Warhead candies. And I like, there's like 10 servings or something in this like Warhead candy pack, and I had 5 at once. And they're warheads, and I don't want the candy parts. I was literally just sucking off the sour part and then spitting out the candy, which is disgusting. But it's delicious to me right now. And then he also got me a Warhead sour pickle, and dude, it was everything I've ever wanted. It was so freaking good. And then of course I have all of my. It's delicious, and I've got all my other sour stuff. So, and pickle mash. Yes, he got me. It's a salsa, but it's made completely out of pickles. There's no tomato, so it's like really sour and delicious.
Interesting.
It is so good. So he's been very sweet in getting me all like the sour stuff that me and the child crave. But it's hard because I have to kind of like regulate it now, because my tongue is like, we can't handle this. You need to slow down. And I'm like, never. It never stops tasting good.
I'll take the pain.
Yeah. So the goldfish have also been a bit of a break from that. But I'm trying to think besides that. Really anything particularly exciting has happened. I found the motivation to fold my laundry today, which has been lacking for a while. So thank goodness for that.
I feel that.
I'm watching a lot of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. This is actually my first rewatch of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So Bobby was like giving me a hard time because I'm always rewatching something. He was like, why don't you just watch something new? And I was like, this is my first rewatch. Okay, so it's basically like the first time.
It's basically just one time. Jeez.
Yeah.
Get off my back.
But he did introduce me to this anime, which I don't remember the name of. But it's because he's when watching it and says it's really good. It is a straight like romantic like dramedy thing. Like that's it. There's like no other plot to it. And I know that Javi likes chick flicks. I know this about him. It's one of the first things that I knew about him. But I typically, most of the like, you know, animes he watches are like kind of like fantasy or like exciting in some way. All of the animes that I watch I don't watch just like romance animes, you know, like
anime just feels like a strange genre for that, because you can do that with like real people, whereas fantasy it makes sense because it's easier to like illustrate a fantasy than to like cast it and all like. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, exactly. So I did not think I was gonna like it, but he was giving me such a hard time for watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I was like, okay, I'm done multitasking, I'll give it a shot. And I watched 2 episodes and I really liked it. And then I stopped because I had to go back to multitasking. But I'm surprised. It's probably like the first ever just like straight like romantic dramedy thing that I've ever, like definitely the only anime I've ever watched. That's just, there's no like magical element. There's no sci-fi or action element. But it's pretty cute. It's very sweet. It's like a little like boarding school romance, and a lot of those get real creepy. This one has not been creepy at all, which is a shock.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's good. That's been this week. Grayson, my little niece, has a rash on her tummy. She's got a little virus, so that's sad for her. Yeah. I think That's it. I don't think anything else that interesting has happened this week. We have one baby chick who keeps getting out of the brooder. I've named her Houdini. She's the only one who does it, and I don't know how she's doing it. She's fine. Like, she doesn't go anywhere. She just hangs out in the chicken coop by the brooder, and the big chickens don't seem to care about her. But I'm just like, how are you doing this? You're the only one.
She just wants to know she can get out. She doesn't want to leave, but she wants to know she can.
Yeah. But then I put her back in the brooder, and she like goes to like chug a bunch of water. And I'm like, dude, like, if you'd stop
stay in there,
eating your way out, you could always have access to food, water, and the little chick heater that they're still enjoying.
Right.
So I don't understand what's going on there. But oh yeah, and I've been going on walks. So that's new for me, because I don't really like walking, but I'm trying to like be healthy and get out and about. And so Javi's been very sweet because he's been back, so he's been going with me, and he's been going to the gym a bunch too. So he's been like doubling up on workouts because he's been going with me and going to the gym. So I'm very proud of him, and proud of myself for going on walks that I would usually hate. And we're both eating so healthy. I'm just so proud of us right now.
Good job.
It's easier to do. Usually I feel like I'm doing this alone because I'm kind of here by myself. But it's easier to do it when there's like, you feel like you're kind of like a team with like a similar goal in mind.
Yeah. You mean like married life?
yeah, kind of like married life. I guess what I'm saying is I'm so glad that my husband, who I've been married to for years now, is actually at home with me. We actually get to live as a married couple.
Yeah,
cool. He's done the cat litter a few times. Like, he went out and he got groceries today, which is also the first time in our entire relationship where this man has picked up groceries. Because usually he hates going grocery shopping. So usually he'll be like, I'll get one thing. What do we need the most? Okay, I'll go get that. And he will literally go to the store and get like cat litter. And I'm like, I have a whole list of things. Or he'll get like milk or like meat, but he will not get like a grocery list, even a short one. But he volunteered yesterday on his own, and so I gave him a list this morning and he nailed it. Like, he got everything, and then some other stuff that wasn't on there, but that's like really yummy and I'm excited to eat. So and it was also super freaking helpful. Yeah, seriously. It was so helpful too, because I would have had to use like my whole lunch break to try to run into town and back, and it's always a nightmare trying to get groceries in the middle of the week. But yeah, so it's been nice in practical ways having him home, and also just because he's fun and I like him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, it's like you married him for a reason or something.
I married him for a reason. Yeah, no, it was for the military benefits.
Yeah,
it wasn't. This the benefits is just a bonus. They're okay, but they're not that good. All right,
like, I'm not gonna get married for that, but if he's got a good personality too, maybe.
Yes. And I think he does. So I'm just very, very glad that he's home. He starts his new job soon. And I think we're going to go see his family maybe next weekend, which actually means I'm going to the beach 2 weekends in a row. Although I don't think we'll actually go to the beach. We'll just be kind of down at the coast.
Right.
It's his mom's birthday dinner, and it's going to be like at a bar. And I was like,
that'll be fun for you.
I know I am pregnant. I can't drink. And my bedtime, and by bedtime I mean like brain fully shuts off between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. most nights. So I was like, listen, if I go comatose, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna be like a part of things, But if I go comatose, just like, no, it's not personal. Just you're just gonna have to go with me on this.
Yeah.
And he was like, should I just leave you at home? I was like, I don't know, to be honest.
It's like, you really can just blame everything on the baby right now. You're just like, the baby demands I eat all the sour food. The baby demands I sleep right now. Sorry.
The baby does demand that I sleep a lot. And what was it this morning? I think I'm finally reaching the point where like I'll be able to feel baby like moving around. And I just barely felt it this morning. I'm trying to remember what was going on. I was being, I believe, stepped on by an animal at the time, because Ruby has been doing this thing now where she tries to wake me up by body slamming me, and then she just lays her full weight on me. And so like I'm laying on my side for the child, and so she's laying across my rib cage, like trying to like slowly suffocate me. And this morning I was turned kind of awkward, I guess. So I guess she was squishing like my uterus, and the baby was like, get off. And I was like, oh my God, I think that was the baby moving, because mostly I still can't feel that much because the baby is still little. Well, it's the size of a donut this week, which is, thrilling because I love donuts. They might be my favorite dessert ever. So I'm honored, and I hope the child is in some way honored that it's the size of a donut.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
I know. So that's pretty much been my week. I just can't wait for for like to be able to like feel the baby move around and stuff more, because then I can also make Hobby like feel it and be like, look, I'm not just getting fat, there really is human life in here. Yesterday he spoke to my stomach for the first time ever. He was like whispering to it, you better be a boy. And I was like, this is so, and it was so threatening, like the way he was talking, and I was like, stop.
This is the first time your child is hearing your voice. Can't be a threat.
Like, you better be a boy. I'm telling you, if you come out a girl, ooh, you better be a boy. And I'm like, first of all, whatever baby is, baby already is. And also, that's up to you and your genes, not mine. So
that's true.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So fun quick story. When I was in middle school, we were learning about like biology and, you know, like the XX chromosome and the XY. And, you know, like it's funny, like in a horrifying way that like men in history would like kill their wives if they didn't give them sons
all the time,
because it's the man's fault.
Their fault.
It's a girl.
I think about it all the time.
And it's just so funny.
It's awful.
So there was this one kid in my class and he was like, so can you like because you know he's a guy, and he's like, can you just like think really strong thoughts at the time of conception and just like make it a boy or a girl? And the teacher just looked like he was dead serious, and the teacher was like, no. He's like, well, until it's proved otherwise, I think that's probably possible. So
oh my god, that is so funny. It really is. Of all of the things that humans have, like, we have found weird ways to have some control over, not that really. No, I mean, it just is. It is luck of the draw.
Yep. If you're gonna get a girl, you're gonna get a girl.
Yeah, I don't know. Although, and I can't remember if I said this last time or not, my mom did realize that because my sister found out her baby she's having is a girl, so she's having another girl, so she's gonna have two girls, and we live in the same city now, which means these are going to be very close cousins, which I have no concept of. I have no cousins whatsoever. You do.
It's pretty fun.
So
it's pretty fun.
I'm taking it as a positive then. Good.
Yeah.
So they're all going to be in the same city, but if I have a girl, they're all going to be girls in high school at the same time. 3 teenage girls at once feels, I'm torn between the words excessive and catastrophic. It feels like so much.
It could be both. I feel like it would go one way or the other, where they would all be really close and like have each other's backs, or they're all just going to be so different that they're going to hate each other.
I think it's going to be a little bit of both. It's just like the teenage girl hormones and the teenage girl drama is going to be off the charts. And this is what Javi was saying. He was talking to his friend yesterday when he was gaming, and he was saying that he doesn't want to have a girl. Everyone's having girls. It's just so trendy to have girls. And I was like, first of all, like, it's not, you can't control
People have been having girls since the beginning of time, Javi.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like a trend. But then his friend was like, yeah, why not girls though? Girls are awesome. He has a girl, obviously. And basically, and he said that his friend said that girls are just so much easier and they listen so much better, and little boys just don't. And I was like, he's not completely wrong, but here is the caveat, is that little girls tend to be much more well-behaved than little boys, but teenage girls tend to be nightmarish, even the best of them. Just insane. And not that teenage boys are like a picnic, but comparatively much easier. So it's just like, do you want things to be harder when they're little or harder when they're older? Right. As a general rule. You don't get to pick. It's just like there is a trade-off there. So anyways, I think about that. And then I feel like boys hit around 17 to like 22, 23. And I feel like they start to kind of like get this like I'm the man attitude. And then I feel like it's not really a problem for me as the mom, but it might be a bit of a problem for like the Hobby as the father and the teacher. Because I've just seen so many like teenage sons clash with their dads during that phase.
Yeah. And a lot of teen girls will clash with their moms. So it's like
and teen girls
whichever you have.
Their moms. Exactly. Yeah. So, but I think men, like boys do that when they're like later teenagehood, whereas it starts with like girls like around like age like 12.
Like puberty. And then the men are like when they're becoming adults. So there's like a little bit of a gap there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's equal levels of difficulty, but at different times of life. And I think about that a lot too, because I'm like, what horrors await us? You know?
This will be a nightmare, but a
like,
fun
this is going to be hard. I'm just wondering which ways it's going to be hard.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I'm psyched about it too, but I'm hoping if it's a boy, at least I think it'll be harder for Hobby across the board, you know? Like, I think, because then A little boy, they're crazy. They're gonna be, you know, a handful. But then when they get into like teenagehood, they're just too cool for mom. And then when they get into like adulthood, you know, they tend to be
They're
kind
like
of like
protective.
headbutting. Yeah, they get headbutting with dad, and then mom is like, you know, awesome again.
The
So
favorite. Yeah.
if we have a boy, I think it'll actually be much easier for me overall.
Yeah.
But
He'll
I
just
still
have a
want
couple
girl.
years when he's young, and then you'll be fine.
Yes, exactly. They'll be besties. I mean, they will be besties. But also little girls are tend to be besties with their dad too. So
Yeah,
regardless.
that's true.
Yeah. So I guess that is my week, and also diatribe on the differences between boys and girls, which are very probably everyone was like, duh. But I just whenever I hear having his friends talk about it, I'm like, oh, but I want to be a part of the conversation so bad.
Yeah. Like, I have things to say now. I'm
like,
invested in this.
As someone who has worked with children and has made many observations on this, I would like to bring up this point. And of course, it's not really welcome, which is understandable if you're trying to play video games.
They're like, can you shoot that guy? And you're like, guys, I just think boys are easier when they're older.
Yeah, I'm like, I think we just need to take a minute to really talk about parenting, you know, with the different genders and, you know, what to expect. And they're like, go left.
You idiot, where are you?
Yeah, this is also probably why I don't like I do enjoy some video games, but like Happy was always like, you should like, you know, start playing video games with other people, like, you know, make friends. And I'm like, but I'm not gonna want to like the strategy, having to like, you know, teamwork with people, my nightmare. I don't want to. I want to be able to just like, so sometimes I play Disney Dreamlight Valley with my friend Marissa, which is a solo game, but we go on Discord on the same channel and talk to each other about complete nonsense, rarely the game, and it's delightful. So
cool. Is this the mermaid friend?
Yes, this is my mermaid friend Marissa. I've been testing out a bunch of different nicknames on her because she calls me Whiskey, which I love. It's excellent, Whiskey O'Rourke. So I've been like, I can't remember what I tried on her last time, but it didn't really fit. But I think right now I'm calling her Gin, because Gin and Whiskey are some adorable friend names. But she's classier than I am, and so like her full nickname is Genevieve. But but I'm gonna call her Gin, and we're gonna see if I can make it stick.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyways, shout out Marissa if you're out there. I mean, Gin. She probably doesn't. If she hasn't gotten the letter that I sent to her yet, she doesn't even know. Like that I named her this because I told her in a letter.
It's new. It's new.
It's recent.
Yeah. Well, to me, she's your mermaid friend, so anything's probably better than that.
That's like, and in my head, she's just Marissa, like my close friend. But every time I like say her name, Javi will be like, "Who?" or I'll be like, "Who?" and I'm like, "My mermaid friend," and they're like, "Ah!" Everyone knows her as my mermaid friend.
Yeah. Be careful where you meet people that you're going to be friends with, because
that'll be it.
It's in stone.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I don't see. I describe you as my writing friend now. You did manage to get out of the blonde girl from math class.
That's true. So. Really nowhere to go but up from there. So
really?
Good.
Anyways, that's everything and stuff that nobody asked for. Cool. Do you have any book racks this week?
No. I totally forgot to read. I have a movie rec, The Commuter with Liam Neeson. But yeah. So
oh my god, that's too funny. I'm still reading what is it? Arch Enemies. The second book in the Renegade series. Sorry, I am going to use the pregnancy card because it has been, I feel so stupid lately that I'm going to go off on another little bitty rant because this will explain a lot. But also, I didn't know. Did you know that when you're pregnant and for about 2 years after, your brain actually shrinks? It's a proven scientific fact. Your brain shrinks.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Why? It actually does. And so they don't know if it makes you stupider or if it's just your brain becoming more streamlined. Like that kind of happens around puberty. Your brain gets smaller because it loses connections it doesn't need and you're just becoming more efficient at thinking. But they don't know. They just studies. I don't know if they just haven't studied or they just haven't figured it out, but they don't know if it's you basically getting stupider or if it's your brain becoming more streamlined. They have noticed more activity in the areas of the brain that control social interaction and intuition. So there is a theory that or a hypothesis rather, that it's to help the mother become more in tune with like the baby's cues, like to understand like their needs better.
Right.
So I don't know, but I feel stupider. I don't know if it's just because I'm 100% exhausted all the time. Also, who said that the fatigue goes away after the first trimester? I'm gonna slap them. I'm gonna slap them right in the face.
It wasn't me.
Not true. It wasn't. You're safe.
Yeah, I did nothing.
But between the constant fatigue and the brain shrinking phenomenon, I feel very stupid all the time. So I can't even count the amount of times this week where I've started a sentence, trailed off, and there's no part of my brain that has any idea where it started, like none whatsoever. So I just have to give up. I just keep starting things and then I'm like,
never mind.
I guess I don't know what I was doing anymore. So if that happens, I'm sorry. I'm struggling. Everything is so much. I literally was just sitting there on the, I don't even remember what it was about, but I just remember sitting there on the bed earlier today and there was something I had to do, like I had to get up to go do. And I out loud just went, why is everything so hard? And I don't even remember what it was. I just remember that it was a really simple task. And I was like, it shouldn't be hard.
You're like, this is gonna break me. This is where I go.
This is it. This is it for me. Yeah. So that's hard. Like I had to read like a construction loan application thing. It was just a basic sentence, no technicalities. And I read it like 15 times and I was like, I don't know what these words mean.
Nice.
I give up.
What is the?
What is the? And the? No, I don't know.
Nice.
Anyway, so there's my excuse. But yeah, so Renegades is that series that I'm still reading. I'm still on the middle book in the trilogy. I'm enjoying it. I was on like a crazy reading kick and now I'm like slowing down. And also I'm exhausted. So usually I do my reading late at night. And now I eat dinner, I do dishes and chores. I'm usually in bed around like 7. I'm usually falling asleep around 8 or 8:30. So
yeah,
it's taking me a lot longer to get through stuff. Yeah. So no new book rec, but I'm still enjoying it. My food rec for you all is Goldfish.
There you go. We have a movie rec and a food rec. Is that enough,
you should
guys?
Combine them. Go have a movie snack time. There you go.
That's what you should do. Yes.
Avi said he might take me to this place that we really like this weekend, and they like change their menu and they have a lot of really good food, and I'm just so excited. That's the other thing I think about all the time is food now.
That makes sense for sure. I mean, I think about food a lot too, so you've got to be thinking about it even more.
Yeah, I am. I'm like starving right now, and I just had Goldfish right before I sat down to record. I'm like, stop. And like 45 minutes before that, or not even before that, way less, I had a whole pear. But that's just basically water because fruit is just a lie. It's just water. And
did you say fruit is a lie?
Fruit is a lie. It's basically water. But like
it thinks it's food, but it's just water.
That's how I feel about smoothies and soups also, in case anyone's wondering. It's grown to include fruit recently. Partially just out of animosity because I have to eat more fruit as a pregnant person, and I've never been a big fan of fruit. So
yeah.
I feel like I just keep taking us on tangents.
It's okay. It'll be a tangenty episode. That's okay.
What's our word of the week?
Our word of the week is Monachopsis. 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 I feel like I skipped a letter there. It's whatever. Monachopsis. And it's fun to say. It's the subtle but persistent feeling of being out of place. So it's kind of like a sad, but I feel like very relatable word. You know, like when you just...
my entire life has been rife with Monachopsis.
Yeah, pretty much.
It has been a shining example of Monachopsis.
And you're using it correctly. Oh my gosh.
I know, look at me.
So proud.
Feeling real. I'm not feeling real Monachopsis-y right now because I used it right and then I didn't.
Ooh.
Monachopsis. I like that. I feel like that's one that we could tie back into like normal everyday language. I feel like people would get used to it. It's not that complicated.
Yeah.
That's very Greek.
It is, and I don't know where it came from. People think it's made up, but I don't even know what that means because aren't all words made up?
Yeah, wait a minute.
So what does that even mean? But so I don't know if it's just like tell everyone about this new word or if it's tell everyone to bring back this word. But Monachopsis.
Monachopsis. I don't know. The word Monachopsis is in a Monachopsis of its own in the greater world of language.
It's just slightly out of place. No one knows where it came from.
No one knows what it was. Monachopsis is a Monachopsis-y word. It's Monachopsis-ish.
It's Monachopsis. Shish. All of the syllables.
Yeah. I had to use it wrong because you complimented me on using it right, and I have to be contrarian.
Okay, I'll stop complimenting you.
Yeah, never compliment me again.
This is a mistake.
Compliment me at your own risk. That is real, though. I feel like I don't take compliments well. I'm like aggressively bad at it. Like, I'm not just someone who's like, oh,
Ash, I love your
I'm
shirt.
awkward.
No,
this shirt's hideous. How dare you? Why would you clearly have no taste? You look beautiful. Okay.
Yeah. I hate you, but I love you. Goodbye.
Yeah. That's too funny. This is again a side rant before we get into the theme, but I literally, you know how you occasionally, will just find yourself like fantasizing about like if I was ever interviewed on a talk show,
Oh
like
yeah,
that kind of thing.
Occasionally,
like what you would say.
Sure.
Yeah,
all the time.
all constantly. Yeah. And so I was thinking about how like sometimes like hosts of the like talk shows will be like, I just love you to like, if they're celebrity guests, and it's totally acceptable for celebrity guests to be like, oh, thank you, like, because in that scenario there's no like established intimacy or like expectation of any other response. But I just was thinking, like, if it were me in that scenario and somebody said I love you and I was like, thank you, then I'd be like, hang on, I have to tell everyone a story about my friend Karissa and how if you say I love you to her, even if you have an established intimate bond with her, she'll say thank you, which is a very different vibe than on a talk show. And I was thinking about that, how I would have to bring that up.
I think about that a lot, because before I actually made that statement, I was like, I don't know why people do this. This is stupid. Just say you love people. And then it came out of my mouth and I was like, who am I? What is this?
I've heard you do it multiple times.
I know.
There's something I love so much about it. There's something so confident about. Karissa, I love you. Thanks.
I think I'm great too. We got something in common. Woo!
Like, hey, I agree with you. I am excellent. Anyway, so I think about that and just know that I'm literally in my talk show delusions. You're present still.
Good.
Anyways, do you want to get into the theme for this episode?
Yes, we're going to be talking about the book version of Montages, which is, it's kind of hard to describe. Do you want to describe it? Or
yeah, sure. Book montages are stupid wastes of time and energy. They are a waste of your reader's brain space and a waste of your writing effort. And there's usually a faster way to get to the point. But I guess montages typically serve, I obviously hate montages, but they typically serve the purpose of displaying that a character has increased their skill in some area, which I will say is important. We literally talked about, I think, the last episode or the episode before, how like if you have a character who's like just starting something, they shouldn't automatically be good at it. So that implies they need to do some kind of like training. The montage is typically a transformation. It could be training, it could be a makeover, it could be whatever. And I hate it every single time. I would rather somebody be like 3 months passed, I'm okay with that. That's better. I feel like otherwise it's a waste.
Yeah. So you hate it because you get like bored, or because you think it's lazy writing, or why?
I hate it because I get bored. I think it's lazy writing.
And all the above.
All of the above. And I believe hypothetically that it can be done without, and like while intertwining like plot. Like, I guess technically you could say all of the Harry Potter books are a bit of a montage occasionally when they're like going to classes and stuff because they're learning. But the plot is so thoroughly intertwined, it doesn't feel like a montage at all. So hypothetically, somebody could do a training montage, and if the plot is woven in well enough, then, and the montage is like short enough, like in Siege and Storm, the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo, she does this a little bit. It still was a little too montagey for me, which is a shock because it's Leigh Bardugo and I never got anything but glowing reviews. But it's a better example if you're going to do it, I guess. Other than that, though, it's just every time I see a montage, I'm like, I didn't need to see the whole makeover. I didn't need to see the whole training thing. I didn't need to see them go to school this whole time to learn this thing. I need to know that it happened because realism, but I don't want to see it. It's boring as hell and a waste of my time. And you just slow down the plot hugely. I also am someone who really cares about fast pacing, or at least active pacing. And I feel like the montage almost always just destroys pacing.
Yeah, I guess, like, for me, montage also brings to mind like really short scenes in rapid succession, which I basically only like if it's a battle scene, and even then,
yes,
only in certain circumstances.
yep,
Because like the problem with doing something like that for training or like a makeover kind of thing is that the like the faster things are going, the closer readers are kind of assuming we're getting to the climax. And so if you're taking this moment that happens earlier, right, like training or like makeovers or whatever, you're almost upping the pace so much that the climax can't actually match it. And so then it feels less important, or like it's not as exciting, even though it should be.
exactly.
So
It also, it kind of feels like when you read it, it kind of feels like the writer didn't really know where to go next with the plot. So while they were trying to figure out where to go next, they just kept writing about, it feels like fluff scenes. And so they just kept writing like fluff scenes of like training or the makeover or whatever montage is happening. It just feels like wasted space, like, you know, a fluff scene, which never does anything any good.
yeah. And like, so you mentioned Harry Potter and how like the classes kind of operate that way, but the thing that works there, I think, is that they're all like divvied up. Like it's not like we just get a series of scenes in a row about it. It's that there are other things going on in between them. So if you like, let's take training montage, just because that's kind of, you know, a big one. If they are training, other things should be happening in the middle of the training that you can use to break those scenes up. And if nothing else is happening, like you said, just do kind of an overview, describe like the next 6 months were really hard, or something. Like, don't use that sentence, but you know what I mean?
But something to that effect. But yeah, I agree. It basically, the way that J.K. Rowling did it had the practical effect that you want out of a montage without being a montage, which is why it was awesome. But if she had done just itself, exactly, but just a bunch of classroom scenes one after the other would have been boring as hell. I didn't want to do that at school either.
Yeah, no one likes that. It does feel like, from the reader perspective, like the writer has kind of lost their way for a moment. And I do think like you might be thinking, but I need all these scenes and nothing else happens in between. Well, then you need to cut the scenes, or something needs to happen in between. And really, you can probably move stuff around. Like, you know, sometimes chronology is kind of set in stone, but you can add stuff or move stuff in between. Even just like conversations would be helpful. Just something to break it up so that there's variety, because really that's how all scenes work. You don't want too many scenes in a row that take place in the exact same place or with only the same people, unless that is somehow the premise of your story in some way. So
well, and here's my other problem with the training makeover montage thing. A makeover maybe doesn't apply to this problem. The training montage 100% does. You cannot show in a book somebody going from the beginning of a skill to being a master of the skill in montage form. You can't do it. It's unrealistic as hell to become a master. Is it 10,000 hours of something to become a master? If you're showing 10,000 hours of a montage, stop it. Stop it, right? Throw away the book. Pick a different book if that's what you feel you need to do. I mean, absolutely not. Do not. I feel so strongly about this, obviously. If you guys have not watched Galavan, one of my all-time favorite shows, also one of Karissa's.
Yes.
It is excellent. It is a medieval musical comedy, and there is a song that is basically a let's get down to business type thing. It's a training montage, and the whole joke, because it's a comedy and it's supposed to be absurd, is that this princess, she trains this knight who's been like down on his luck and hasn't, you know, done anything knightly in forever. There's this like hysterical training montage that has like all of the training montage stereotypes, so it's already ridiculous. And then at the end, like the next day, like he's ready for the battle. First of all, it was a 1 day long montage. Obviously, nothing useful can happen in like a day of training. Like nothing that would be significantly useful. It takes time. Exactly. It takes more than a few months too. Like that's the thing with the montage thing. There are so few things you could show significant progress in a montage that would make sense. Besides, you could do a makeover. It's just that also tends to be a waste of time. But anyways, and then at the end of this training session or whatever, Gallivant, the knight, is so sore he can't lift up his arms because they trained too hard. And he and the other knight just end up, I think, like vomiting or something when they're trying to like, fight. Like it's just not good. But that's like realistically the effect of the montage. So they did a great job making fun of it in all of the best ways. So that's the other problem. I feel like for a montage to even have the desired effect, it would have to be so much longer, and nobody wants that either. So
Yeah.
why
Well,
do a
and
montage?
the problem too with something like a training montage is that even if as a writer you say like, well, for the next scene to happen they need to be pretty good at this, and I want to give proper time for that, right? Like I want it to be a couple months, that's a good call, so they actually like they're not still sore and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It, from the reader's perspective, even if you showcase a lot of scenes, they still have only spent so much time in that brain space.
Mm-hmm.
And so giving just like an upfront timeline, like, 3 months later or something, in a creative way, of course, or like in the Harry Potter series, really stretching it out over 7 years so that the skills can be seen as improving as they go. By the time you get to the seventh Harry Potter book, you're like, yes, it is reasonable that Harry is really good at this, that Hermione is really good at this, that Ron is really good at this, because you've seen their improvement over time.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to or can't spend that amount of time on it, you do still need to be aware that even if you try to do just like a chapter long training montage or whatever, the reader still hasn't been in that space very long. And so it doesn't feel realistic to them unless you give them a specific timeline that person could be good at it yet. And I mean, even with like the makeover thing, sometimes in books, and I'll get to like the movie aspect in a second, but it's like something changes immediately. And like, as someone that does not wear a lot of makeup, you don't master that skill overnight either.
No, unless
so
you're like a
it's
Princess Diary situation where you have someone who can do your
someone
hair
else
and makeup
doing
for
it.
you. Yeah,
Right.
no
But
way in hell.
yeah, they always look really pretty and they get their hair cut and they get their makeup done. And then I'm like, but how do they maintain that? Because you don't know how to do your hair. You don't know how to do your makeup to make it look like that every day. So it's just still kind of strange to expect any skill to be achieved overnight. And so like, but if you're in some kind of contemporary genre, maybe like a makeover scene is going to be useful. Or if you're in like a speculative fiction genre, then a training montage is, and everything in between. But you have to have a proper sense of how long mastering that skill takes and try in some way to emulate that for the reader. And really, that's kind of what montages do, because they are used a lot in TV and movies. And I feel like we should talk about this, because the typical type of montage is really useful on the screen, I think, but really because hard to copy visual. In a book. And so I think you have to have an understanding that if you're writing a book, there are certain things you have to leave on the screen. Like you can't take those in. So you have to find a different way of appealing to that. So in a movie, it would be kind of lame to say 3 months later, because you don't have a narration going on. But in a book, it's kind of lame to try to just mash a bunch of scenes together instead of just narrating like, and then 3 months later. I don't know why 3 months is in my head, but it just months. I don't know. But it's better for the medium you're in. And I think it can feel strange, especially if you're a new writer, because you're probably more used to watching TV than reading. I don't know, maybe you read a lot. It just depends on the person. But if you do watch a lot of TV, because it is so visual, you're probably remembering that more instinctually, and you're trying to copy it, and that just probably isn't the best writing, probably isn't the best format to try to translate that to. So you have to find a way, like, what does a montage achieve in a movie, and to achieve that same effect, what do you do in the writing format? And that's going to change depending on what you're trying to achieve. So
I mean, I think one thing across the board that montages are supposed to achieve is a sense of time passing. And then whatever other goals, like, the specific training, like becoming a master of, their magic, their supernatural ability, their superpower, a weapon, or, a makeover or something, their new look or their new attitude, or a, secret identity, a language, whatever it is. So you have, a more specific goal, but I think the overarching goal of a montage is to give your readers or your viewers a sense that time is moving on. And I think in a movie it's easier to do visually because everything's easier to do visually. It's a movie. Also, most movies are about 2 hours long or less. So any amount of time that is taken up in a movie feels more significant. So if you're only going to have an hour and a half to 2 hours to watch this whole movie, and there's like 1 or 2 minutes spent on this montage, that's a significant amount of time in the broader, range of the movie. So you do get that, like, things happen very fast in movies, like compared to books typically. Like the beat changes are typically much faster in a movie, and that's what people expect. So a montage feels more significant. Like it gives the viewer the sense that time is passing while things are happening, like while you're seeing the montage.
Yeah.
In a book, everybody reads at a different pace. It could take one person 8 hours to finish reading a book. It could take somebody else like 16 hours or more to finish reading a book. So you can't really gauge what speed people are reading at. And some people read like in spurts. So that kind of throws things off completely as well. You don't have the visual element either. So you can't just like say, oh, I'll write this montage. It'll take about this amount of time to read. That'll take, that'll give people a sense of time passing. Actually, it'll make you feel like you're wasting their time in book form, which is kind of a weird thing that is very different from movies versus books. So you want to do something that indicates the passage of time. Maybe you pick a couple scenes. Don't montage it. Like I'm saying, like 3. Like pick like maybe 3 scenes, divvy them up, and make sure that important stuff to the plot happens at least in or in between each of those scenes. I would say in, because everything should be somewhat relevant to the plot or a subplot. And also to indicate the passage of time, if you don't want to be like just like a flat 3 months later, which I think we should do more. It's very useful in book form. I see nothing wrong with it at all. But if you don't want to do that, you're like, no, I want to have some of these training scenes. Like, I like the way they're written. I think that I can make them important to the plot or the subplot. Then, have stuff like the seasons change,
Yeah.
Be like in one scene, it's really hot outside. People are swimming to cool off. In the next scene, the leaves on the trees have changed. And the next scene,
say like one day in winter, and when it was previously summer. So we're like, great, seasons have changed.
Exactly. There's other ways to communicate the passage of time naturally. If you feel like 3 months later, or 2 years later, if you feel like that is too harsh, I personally fine with it. But I can see how maybe for some people that would be like too stark of a jump. Again, not for me. I feel like it's better than a montage on any day. But there's more natural ways to indicate the passage of time that'll feel more natural for your readers. So you kind of ease them into this idea that your character's been working on this thing for a long time now, or for a significant enough time now, and their skills have advanced. So, I mean, seasons change, people's physicality changes, their friends and the people around them, their physicality changes. Somebody cuts their hair, somebody's really tan from the summer. Like there's a lot of things. Someone's got muscles, somebody has started dressing different, somebody's in a new relationship, somebody else has broken up, somebody's had a kid. Just think about the normal things that happen in life like over a series of however long, like months or years. Even just look at your own life and think like, what's different now that wasn't this way 3 months ago? And those are the kind of things you can incorporate into your world that make it feel less montage and more just time is passing, important stuff is happening. Now we understand the character has gained some skills they need to move to the next part of the plot.
Yeah. So actually, I think a good example of this in movie form was The Commuter. So if you guys have seen it, or if you want to see it, the opening scene, like, I know, right? The whole movie basically takes place on this train that he commutes on, and it takes place over, I don't even know how long it takes a train to get where it's going, maybe 2-3 hours. And so the opening of the movie, in order to establish like his relationships outside of the train, because he has a family and a job and all this kind of stuff, it does this probably 60-second montage of his morning routine and like the drive. His wife drives him to the train station, and so it shows like him like his alarm going off like probably 6-7 times in a row, and his wife being like, oh, turn it off, and then some days she gets up. Shows him like fighting with his son in the morning, but then like talking to him and hugging him in other scenes. And like some days when his wife drives him to the train station, they're fighting, and some days they're laughing, and some days they're crying, and just like all these different things. The seasons are changing, and it's kind of showing this transition. It's going through his morning, but over like several different months with each shift. And it was a really useful montage because it establishes the relationships, and it establishes this idea that like he's a guy with a routine. He does the same thing every day, so that when his routine changes, it's noticeable and you understand why he's going to be so kind of knocked off guard by it. Yeah. So that in like the writing world is very similar to the idea of your opening chapter and how you're supposed to show us who the character is in a normal circumstance, and then show us the catalyst for things to change. And writers, I do, everyone has a really hard time with this, because you're like, well, how do I show a normal day while it's still interesting? And in movie form, I think maybe a montage is a cool way to do this. But in writing, you don't want to do something like that. You want to take like this small moment and give us ways to assume the bigger moments. So like the montage shows us the big moment, so we can assume the small moment, but you kind of want to do the opposite. So like if it does start with this, if you're writing a book version of The Commuter, start with just like a normal day and make statements about how, like, as usual, or weird, this person wasn't on the train today, or something like that, where you just kind of indicate this is normal. These are the things that are normal. Here's some strange anomalies, so that when the change happens, we have a good sense of what a normal day would look like for this person. So I do think that montages in movies sometimes are for that, but you don't need to try to do that in book form, whether it's the opening or the middle or whatever it is. If it's, that's about time passing. But if you're also trying to establish a routine to indicate like something's about to change, like here's how things are normally, but things are about to change, you want to do that with a small moment that we can assume big things about, instead of taking like an overview and then trying to get us down to one point on that timeline.
I completely agree. And I think the difference too is montages in movies rarely feel monotonous. They almost always feel monotonous in books. So, like we say like every single episode, if you're doing it on purpose, if you're doing it with intentionality because you want your readers to feel the monotony that your character is feeling, maybe that's an exception to the rule. I would say if you're using a montage because you want someone to see this person's life is very boring, every day is the same, or whatever it is, or training is just becoming so boring to them, they have no desire to do it anymore, and just like meh, like it's like dull, gray, monotonous. You could use a montage for that because the device naturally lends itself to a feeling of monotony. But
not to the point where the reader gets bored.
Yeah, exactly. So my warning to that exception is you don't want your readers to disengage completely. So like make it very short. Be like, today was gray, and then move to the next day. Today it was less gray. Training still sucked. Move to the next. I mean, like a few sentences to a paragraph type of montage. If you're going for if you're trying to communicate monotony,
right? I feel like it almost comes across, or maybe this is a good way to do it, as like diary entries. Like epistolic books will sometimes just have like really short chapters, like nothing happened today, and then move on to the next day. And that can work. So if you're doing it in that kind of form, or if you want to do like, if your story is not generally just a series of letters, but you want to include them in the middle to show maybe how time is passing, that might be able to work.
100%.
So it does, because the problem, well, the benefit with television and cinematic stuff is that even when boring stuff is happening, we have the visuals and we have music and stuff like that. When you're reading, you don't have any of that. It's just your imagination. So you really can't stay in a place that's boring as long. So you got to do it in quick succession, but you want it to be done in a way that doesn't make the reader feel like we're lagging. Like the diary entries is kind of a good way to get around that, because okay, now we're seeing a change, right? Like maybe the entries were longer before and then now they're getting shorter, so you're like, okay, they have less time to write because they're very busy, and so that means that they're training a lot or whatever.
You're
and then it'll get longer again,
which is great, because usually a montage does the opposite. It like drops the pace and then keeps it really low, which is almost never good ever in fiction. But the diary entry thing changes the pace, which keeps people interested. That's what the music and the sound effects do in movies, is change the pace. You have to find whatever literary devices suit that purpose in that time in your book, and use those like you would use the music and the sound effects to keep the pace of the story up when maybe nothing that interesting is actually happening. Which I agree. I think the diary entries I think that's a great way to do it.
I also think, this is like a slight shift now, it depends on what your definition of montage is, because I think we've kind of decided it's something about time passing, which I think is fair, because you don't want to like write a scene or even watch a scene in a movie that's like every single day of this person's life, because that's just weird and it takes up too much time. But if you're doing a very short span of time, and I don't know if you want to qualify this as a montage, I do think that sticking with something sensory, so like sights, smells, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And doing them like in a row with ellipses in between, that can kind of give a sense that like either stuff is slowing down, like they're, you know, like, oh no, there's this big reveal and now they're kind of having this moment, or that time is speeding up. You can kind of use ellipses maybe to establish, like, you know, because ellipses trail off.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, how long has it been since we've trailed off? So I think you can do it there if you're doing a very short term passage of time, like a big reveal has happened, or, you know, a big surprise, something that they didn't expect or something they don't like. And I think this can also work with flashbacks. Sometimes we do flashback montages, which again, better in movies and TV. But if you're gonna do a series of flashbacks in a book, I feel like 9 times out of 10, this is probably lazy writing, because you want to probably just be like inserting different pieces of the flashback as things go along. But there are times when just giving straight up a couple flashbacks might be useful depending on your story structure. So if you're doing that, I think a good way to make things short and sweet is to plant the clues beforehand, like symbols that might come back, or phrases or scents or anything like that. And then bring them back into the flashback, so you don't have to spend as much time on them in the flashback and in the montage. And then make it as short as possible, and establish beforehand with a flashback, so then you don't spend as much time in the flashback. And then I think a montage might work there.
I think Darkest Minds, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, I was like, Pregnancy Brain is telling me it's not that, but it's The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken.
Yes.
Great job. Does a fantastic job of interspersing flashbacks throughout. Could she have included them as a montage of flashbacks? Yes. Would it have been nearly as compelling? No. Would I have cared about the flashbacks nearly as much as individual experiences? No. 100% no. I would have been like, this is the interesting part of the flashback, and I don't care about the rest. Instead, by separating them, it made each thing equally important, which is also, I think, kind of the idea of when you do like a montage of scenes, which I guess I should be more specific. I hate the montage of scenes. You could do like a montage of events, which basically everything that Chris has described, like the way to do it, that would be what I'd consider like a montage of events, and is definitely doable. A montage of scenes has also, not only does it slow the pace of the story, it also kind of, I feel like, makes each scene feel of equal or unequal importance to each other, like of equal importance or
equally unimportant.
Equally, there we go. They're all unequally important. So if something like interesting happens in one, it's not going to stand out beyond the others. And if one day is supposed to be more boring than the rest, they're all going to seem equally boring. And if you do drop some important information in one of those scenes, it's going to get lost because it's in a montage. So that's also kind of the problem.
Yeah. And if you take the flashback idea, the thing about flashbacks is that they've already happened. So they can be more disjointed. They can be more of a memory, like, oh, here's a small detail, and then like other things are happening in between, and then here's another small detail, or they can be mixing. I think Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder, which I talked about before, I think a while ago. These are really good. She has like this traumatic backstory, and you are getting like kind of these little hints about what might have happened. And I can't remember if there's like a specific scene that's like a montage of flashbacks, but there is this point when she like finally says it, like she confirms like this is what happened. And it just, you already kind of suspected, but you gather all those flashbacks together, and she says it and you're like, oh, okay. And so, you know, it doesn't feel like you're being given too much information at once, which might be part of the problem with montages too, is it's so much information that, like you said, nothing's going to stand out. Whereas if you focus in on like a couple sensory things, a sight, a smell, something like that, and you make note of those throughout, and then you indicate them in the flashback as like a trigger, or you indicate them in a montage as a kind of trigger. Like maybe there's one event that happens in the training session every day, and so you use that as like a marker of, okay, this is a training session. I feel like Groundhog Day type of books and movies do this too, where you have the signal that like starts the day. It's like a song on the radio waking you up, or someone, you know, kicking you out of bed or something like that. Like there's like a trigger for us to know, okay, this is more of the same. But then you notice in like Groundhog Day style movies and books, you come to a point where they stop giving you all of the tiny details. They give you the trigger, and then they showed the character later on. We assume all those other details happened, as they always do every day.
And it helps keep up the pace.
Exactly. And so just, you know, picking like a symbol or a sensory thing, a phrase or a word that can be used as a trigger to just say like, okay, readers know what's going on here. We don't have to give too much detail about it. We can move on, can also kind of be good. You have to spend some time establishing that, but especially if it's thematically important or like good for the character development, I think that's worth the time. And because it's spread out, it's going to be less grating on the readers. So
100%.
Yeah.
Bobby just opened a soda. It was so loud. Oh my goodness. Oh, sorry, it's tea. I'm so impressed with you. Is it really?
Tea.
He's having tea.
Can form.
Yeah, canned form of tea, which is not my cup of tea, but you know.
But
good one, Ash. Thanks, Ash.
Yeah. High five. Self five.
Woo! Anyways, yeah. Anything else to say about montages? I feel like a lot of my feelings about montage are just rage.
Yeah,
even though they are, it can be applied in a useful way. I just think it's usually not.
Yeah, and it is just because it's so much a cinematic thing, and so it's so much better done on TV than in books. So when you see it done in a book, you're like, really? I would just say another thing real fast, like that the purpose of a montage, whatever format it is to like provide context, not the climatic action. So I would not try to use a montage in the climax. I know I feel like that's tempting sometimes because it's easier because you don't have to get like really into it. Like it's this big moment, you can kind of give this overview of it. I would focus on more action in that moment. So like I said, with if you're going to go with like a bunch of page breaks in a chapter and just do like rapid fire scenes for, you know, anything, I think that can work for a battle. But that's because it's climactic, not because it's context being given. So like I think I already said this at the beginning, but I just want to reiterate that you need to keep your pacing. You need to be building to faster pace for the climax. So if it's coming before and it's too fast paced, you're either going to have to get even faster for the climax or change the pacing beforehand. So if you are using a lot of rapid fire things, I think this even goes with time. Like the climax shouldn't happen over a longer period of time than the buildup took. So just kind of make sure. You can even tell probably by looking at the book, like if you have it in Word or something and you do like a zoom out where you can see like 20 pages at once, like how many chapter breaks do you have in a 10-page period? How many chapter breaks? And depending on your style, that's gonna, you know, you're gonna have a certain ratio, but you want to make sure that your ratio kind of peaks at the climax instead of anywhere else. So whatever your ratio happens to be, I would say that that's where you don't want to fall into a montage accidentally. So you want to be making it about pace, not about you know, I'm just trying to establish a lot of stuff now in really fast succession for the climax. You want to make sure you've established it up front. So
I agree. If you're doing outlining, or if you're kind of doing like reverse outlining, which is where you go back and you kind of like check to make sure you have everything you need for your like beginning, rising action, climax, falling action, which is the very basic, and all the events that happen in your story along the way, I would say try to put like a couple events, like at least one, maybe two events at least or more between your montage and your climax. Because the montage, unless you are doing a rapid fire thing, like Karissa said, which is the exception, if you're not doing a rapid fire montage, it needs to be, it just inherently, even if you're doing it right, is going to be such a slower pace. And you need to be building to that rising action. So things need to become faster and faster and faster paced as you get to the climax. That's how you build suspense and anticipation. Your montage has no business being right next to the climax or even like one event away. It needs to be like 2, 3, or 4 events away. And I would say Siege and Storm actually did a good job on that as well. I would say don't go any closer than Siege and Storm did if you guys are you know, curious. And that one I would say is also a little different because what would have been a quote unquote like training montage basically got interrupted by, you know, not by the climax happening, but by events that lead up to the climax happening. And then you see in the next book that basically because they didn't get to finish their montage, stuff is kind of crazy, which is also something to keep in mind. If your like training thing gets interrupted, like that should affect the characters later on. Like if they had to like stop training because the battle came earlier or something, that should show. They should at least be like, oh, I wish I had more time to train.
Yeah.
You know, which is not a bad way to make sure like they don't master everything and they still have room to grow if you're going to have another book or something. But God, just beware the montage. Definitely don't put it next to the climax ever, please.
Yeah, fair enough. Also, I have one more example. Lauren Oliver's Before I Fall. I don't know if anyone's read this. It's like a Groundhog Day style book. So it's like, I assume everyone knows what Groundhog Day is. It's like where you're reliving the same day over and over.
Like, she keeps saying groundhog. What even is a groundhog?
I know, and it came from a movie. Why are we talking about movies so much today?
Montage is a cinematic strategy.
It is.
I just don't think that it applies to all the books.
Right. So in Before I Fall, she's reliving the same day over and over. And this is like a light spoiler, but not really. She gets to this point, she's like resetting at the end of the day, regardless of what happens. And she kind of comes to this conclusion that like she has to die to end the loop. And I won't tell you if that's true or not, but she's like essentially tries to live out like the best day of her life because she thinks it's going to be her last, and it's the one everyone's going to remember. They're not going to remember all the other days she lived through. So she like spends time with her sister, and she makes sure to say nice things to her parents, and she talks to her friends and, you know, like her boyfriend and all of this kind of stuff. And it's kind of a montage, but not really, because the way it's written just makes it flow very well, right? Because it's not the climax. It's not the moment where she has to decide if she's going to die or not. But it's not on the rising action, right? It's like kind of right before the rising action where there's a little bit of suspense. You're like, why is she living out like the perfect day? Like, why is she not doing anything anymore? Why is she just kind of almost boring, right? Because like normal everyday fun, joyful stuff is kind of boring in a book where you're just like, I love my sister and want to hang out with her. But it kind of just does this overview in the prose where it's just like, you know, I think it's in first person. Like, I spent the morning with my parents, or I made my parents breakfast, and then I spent, you know, this part of the day, I ditched school and I spent it with my sister, and we did these fun things, and then blah, blah, blah. And it kind of created a montage feeling, but because it's only over the course of one day, it didn't take very long because there weren't too many elements to the montage. So it doesn't really feel like a montage. But it kind of operates like it kind of fills the role of a montage in a movie in book form. And so I think sometimes, obviously creative writing is creative, but sometimes the most creative thing you can do is like not get too creative and not try to do stuff out of the ordinary. Just explain what's going on and then move forward to the rising action. And it seems boring, but it's not, especially if it doesn't last very long. It seems like it's the easy way out, but sometimes the easy way out is just the best way out. And so it's okay to go with that, and it still creates an effect. So
I totally agree. And I think another thing that montages often do is establish a sense of the new normal. You know, like before, you know, Mia Thermopolis dressed like this and did her hair like this, and now she does it like this. So we're establishing a new sense of normalcy. Same with like training. They didn't know how to use the weapon before. Now they do, and that's the new normal. Now they're like physically competent. So I think also getting really creative with your montage instead of just like sticking to what works, like Karissa is saying, it doesn't even the approach doesn't support the purpose of the montage, which is to establish a new sense of normalcy. It should feel not monotonous in the sense that like the readers are bored as hell, but it should feel like you're establishing a new normal. So getting like extra creative is not really not going to serve that purpose as well.
And maybe add a sense of like suspense to the montage. Like, here's a new normal, but something's off about it. Right. So that the reader's kind of looking for like, okay, what thing is happening all the time that might not, like, it shouldn't be there, that's out of place or something. Or this is a totally new idea that just came to my mind. If you are doing some kind of a series of training scenes or whatever, mark it by the scenes that are actually not routine. So like in training montage scenes, usually they end with like the character finally mastering something, and then it kind of slows and everyone's like, oh, good job. And they like pat him on the back and that kind of stuff. Maybe just do those moments in between, like the days that aren't monotonous, the days that they actually achieve, like, I don't know, if they're training with bows and arrows, like they actually hit the target. And then the next day is like they hit the target from a greater distance or whatever. Like, don't get too repetitive with that, but like, or big things that are happening.
Bad day, you know?
Like the things that actually make the days different.
Personal reasons, even if they perform really well in training. The things that make your everyday life. most of us are doing the same kind of crap every single day that we did the day before, but it doesn't feel like that to us all the time. It does. Life can occasionally get monotonous. My grandfather used to say life can be mighty tedious, which there is a little bit of that, but also every day while you're living it tends to feel different than the day before, significantly. It should feel that way too. And in that sense, if you're achieving it, it's not going to feel like a montage, which is excellent. It's going to feel like part of the story. And part of that is also because you should be adding things that are relevant to the plot and the subplot,
showing them grow
within those scenes. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you can establish a sense of routine while only talking about the things that aren't routine. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. The achievements, mark the achievements so that readers are still interested, but the sense of time still feels like it's passing.
100%.
So yeah, whatever it is that they're doing, just mark the times when the training starts to pay off, I guess. And if you're doing it in a montage type of form, have it pay off in small incremental ways over time. So it's not just like we're stopping and now everything's perfect, because like the first time you hit a bullseye, you're not going to necessarily hit a bullseye the next time. You still have to train more to get it like 7 times in a row.
I was going to say.
Yeah. So you need to give the characters time to grow, and showing the reader the scene where they actually are indicating the signs of that growth instead of like the moments that build up to that growth is better. And I do think that's sometimes the reverse in movies. So it's okay if it doesn't play out the same way that a TV show would do it.
Yeah. So completely different medium, different approach. I agree. And also kind of in that vein, I guess like my last thought on it is your character should never be the strongest person in the room, the most skilled person in the room, or the smartest person in the room. Why? Because it's not realistic, and art should reflect the human experience. That includes storytelling. And also, it's just not inspiring whatsoever, because there's nowhere for the reader to go. Even if this is a standalone book and you're like, but by the end of the book, they have to take on this thing that no one's ever beat, and they beat it only because they trained, and now they're the best of the best. There should still be a sense that after they defeat the big bad whatever, they still have room to grow and become even more awesome. If not, that's boring as hell. Like, that's a bummer at the end of the book, to be honest. It's like, okay, well, they're, a 16-year-old hero, and they've achieved all they're going to achieve. Life is only downhill from here. You have to give them the sense.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. But there's more to grow. And also, if you are doing like a multiple book series, it gives you way more room for content if they don't just suddenly become an absolute master of the craft, right? And if there's always someone better than them at something, because that's just life, it gives you interesting character options. It gives them mentors or rivals, which is also very interesting. It gives you so much more, because that also is true of life. When you realize you don't know everything, me saying this is the arrogant person that I am, you get so much more out of life when you're willing to realize that you're not good at everything. Even if you're really good at something, you can always get better at it. And there are people who are better at it than you. Some of them are assholes and some of them are great. Some of them are going to be like, let me help you get even better. And then maybe you surpass them, but there's somebody else, just the sense of ongoing achievement and ongoing like growth is awesome and inspiring. So like, don't at the end of your montage, or even at the end of the book, don't let your character be the be all end all for whatever it is that they've, their magical power, their weaponry, their fighting skills, whatever it is. Like, give them room to grow. It's also kind of a bummer for the battle if you're like, well, they're gonna win. They're the most powerful thing that's ever existed.
Yeah, there's got to be suspense, and don't let your montage take the suspense out of things. That's really the theme of this episode.
It really is.
Don't let the montage take suspense out of things.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, that's all I've got on montages.
Yeah, I think so. Me too.
Well, how's your writing going?
My writing has been good but slow. I'm working on that book that I talked about last week, like the boarding school book. And it's good. It's just, I feel like I've suddenly forgotten how to write openings. I've like, too funny. I even had the first two scenes done. Like, I had them written from like earlier, I think in March or something. And I came back to them and I'm like, these are good. But then I wanted to add stuff. And so I started adding stuff and I was like, wait, but now this thing that happened on the first page isn't happening until like the 10th page. So now I need to move it up. But how do I do that? And all of this kind of stuff. So I know people sometimes say don't edit as you go, but I do, because I want to have a good sense. That I'm not
especially
going
in the
to
first
build
few chapters.
Yeah, like I'm not going to build something in that I have to change for the entire book later on. So I've just been I'm trying to get it right. And when did we talk about this? Only a couple weeks ago. I'm struggling with the character descriptions because I'm like, how do I build those in so well? Because there's only like one main character, right? A point of view character, but she has three close friends. And I just built really quirky appearances into them because this is the first book I'm really writing that takes place outside of my like normal series world, but like there's a country in that series and now they're in the real world. So I'm like, I can give them like all of these clothing options and jewelry options and hairstyle options that just like aren't a thing in the normal world. And I went a little crazy with it. So I'm like, I want to establish that now because in my head they have all these like quirky appearance things. And so I'm just like, well, how do I do that and also add tension? So like I know how to do it. It's just like I have to try out a bunch of ways. So I've been like writing and rewriting the first chapter for the past couple days, but I feel closer. So once I kind of establish that, I think I can move on. And like I said, I think this is going to be a shorter book that I'm used to working on. So pacing wise, I'm just like, I'm only like 5,000 words in and I'm like, I feel like a lot has happened, but it should because it's going to be shorter. So I don't have to do as much build up. So anyway, I'm not a hypocrite. I'm just struggling with pacing and not because of montages.
So I gotcha.
Anyway. Yeah, how's yours?
I'm having a bit of the opposite experience as far as openings go, which I usually, I mean, openings are, I'm sure like in 6 months, I'll look back at it and be like garbage. But right now I couldn't. Okay. So let me preface with this. Remember I said I had that kind of like sci-fi-ish Beauty and the Beast retelling I was going to go back to, and I was like, well, maybe I'll play with that and I'll see if I can finish that as a way to just kind of ease me back into writing as I'm getting off of my reading binge. So I opened the file that had half of a novel written. It was already half written. It was all gone. The file was there. Everything in the file was gone.
Oh,
I'm in shock. It was on Dropbox, which is like my fail safe. So I was like, I'm in shock. I have no idea where it went. I don't understand how that happens. But I guess on the bright side, it forces me to write all fresh material. So I mean, I handled it pretty well, all things considered. I had half a novel written, but it probably wasn't all that good. So anyways, I still have the title, which is also a shock for me, but I think it's pretty good. And then I rewrote the opening chapter, which is really like 2 tiny chapters because it's from 2 different people's perspectives, which I also hadn't written it from 2 different people's perspectives last time. So I'm doing that this time. The main character is actually a dude, which I've never done before. But I forgot I had actually kind of done when I wrote it the first time, because I need his sort of like outside perspective on the other character for like the dynamic to work. So that's very different for me that the main character is a dude. And I think I did pretty decent on like the first chapter because it's very short because it's like a little mini chapter and a little mini chapter to like establish the characters. And I did this fun thing where I played like internet roulette where I like Googled, that sounds terrifying. Let me clarify. I Googled ways to open a book or something like that, because I thought a list will come up and I'll scroll through and be like, oh, that's exactly what I'm thinking of, I'll use this approach. And instead I got this list of like 50 interesting ways to open a new chapter, and I was like, okay. So I like played like I just like spun the scroller and I was like, just told myself wherever it stops, we're just creative writing time, we're gonna choose this. And it was basically like zoom in on an item and like slowly zoom out of the item in your description. And I loved that. That's what I accidentally landed on. I at first was like, what do I pick? What do I pick? And then I think I did a good job. And I also then it gave me the idea for the next chapter, like for her introduction, so I really focused on like the color of the item in the first chapter. And to him, the color is white. I'm not going to say what the items are because I feel like it'll give away a lot about the plot, and also you guys can't take it. It's very specific. But anyways, the item is white in color. And so to him, I made it like, the color white, he sees like this like potential future before him, blah, 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 whatever. And it's not sounding very interesting. I think it's pretty interesting. It's also short, which helps. And then I go to hers, and she sees the white, like the item that I'm like zooming out on for her, I picked like the same thing basically and was like, I'm gonna do like a mirrored thing. So I'm gonna do this for both of the characters. And I zooming out of her thing, but the white is this like haunting emptiness. And so it's this like it's like a complete opposite sense for the color. So anyways, and I want both the moments to feel kind of like sterile, and to me personally I feel like white is a very like sterile, like very cold, not very lively color, but it is like a blank slate, you know. And so anyway, so that's what I was playing with, and I'm so pleased. Considering
that sounds really cool,
right? I thought it was fun. Considering that I lost half of a novel.
You needed a win.
I needed a win. I have no idea how that happened. I have to assume that God's like, you need to start from scratch. Do not.
I'm just gonna hit the delete.
Yeah, because the file was still there, named and everything. And all of my supporting documents were in the file, were like there too, like next to the file, because all the documents, because I had them all saved in that file for that book. And the actual manuscript file was just empty.
Did you have like a moment at some point where you were like really sad or like drunk and you went in and deleted stuff and then you don't remember it?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because I don't think I've ever deleted anything when I've been sad or down on myself. I have a file that says old ideas, and that's where I tend to move even my stupidest. Like again, I have a book like idea named Pregnant with Alien Babies. So my bar for what I'm going to get rid of is very, very, very high. I just keep everything. God, there are so many weird titles in my like in the works folder.
I just want to see the cover design that someone would make for a book titled Pregnant with Alien Baby.
If we have any talented graphic designers out there, I would pay you to do it. Wow, would it not be good? But God, anyways, interesting. Now that's all I can think about. But yeah, so no, I don't think I would have. And I can't even write drunk. Like, or I haven't been drunk like in a long time, because I love to sleep soundly, and it's been like ever since I turned like, well, this sounds like I'm old. I'm not even, but I think like since I turned like 23, 22, 23-ish, whenever I would drink, I just had a hard time sleeping, and I love sleep. So I would be like angry that I woke up in the middle of the night because I had like 3 glasses of wine. So I will occasionally drink, not at the moment because I'm pregnant, but I don't typically drink that much. But even in college, when I did drink, you know, quite a bit more, as people are wont to do in college, I have tried so many times to like write drunk. Can't do it. Don't know how people do it. No, Ernest Hemingway was an avid advocate of writing drunk.
I know. How did he do that? That's crazy.
No never,
because I can't either.
I can't. And that's why I don't think that I would have gone into my writing file in Dropbox and found that one and then deleted all of the content out of it. I've also never done anything remotely like that when I'm drunk. Here's what I do when I'm drunk. I start talking in a really thick Southern accent that I don't have. And I fall over because my balance is bad when I'm sober. I knock things over. Again, I do that plenty sober. I just do it a little bit more when I'm drunk. And then I go to sleep. So that's about what I do. So I've never like destroyed half of a manuscript before.
Right.
I want to think that I wouldn't do that, but
yeah.
So that's been my writing update this week, and I'm still trying to finish reading my book. But now I'm like torn between like the new anime, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is like my like brain rest time, and writing the book and reading. So, and I still have so many books. I was like, I was gonna read all these in my reading binge, but now my brain is like, what if we write? Which is good to go with the flow. But I'm also like,
take it.
I wanted to read my books. Maybe I'll do it at the beach because it's going to be hard to like, you don't want to take your computer on the beach because sand, water, wet, can't see because of the screen. It's too dim in the brightness. I have my free write that Javi got me, and I am thinking about bringing it because it has like the Kindle type screen, like the notebook screen, so I can like write in the sun. But I'm very concerned about if I get sand under the keys. So I mean, I don't think it would like hurt it perpetually, but I wouldn't be good for it. So I'm debating. So I might just be like, I'm going to get all my reading done at the beach, which sounds wonderful. So,
nice.
Yeah. And hopefully I don't step on a stingray again. Because the last time I went to Florida, I stepped on a stingray and it got me in the heel. But I love them anyways, and I got a tattoo for them. But I felt it was all my bad. I mean,
It's my fault. I get it.
It was my bad. I felt really bad. I couldn't see it. The one time I didn't shuffle my feet. Y'all, if you've ever been on the Texas coast, Gulf of Mexico, anywhere, and you don't know this, shuffle your damn feet. There's a reason, because these little stingrays are down there, and if you don't shuffle, you might step on them, and then they're upset, and you're going to be very upset because they're going to sting you and you're going to bleed.
It's bad time. Just
It's
shuffle
not
your
a good
feet.
time at all. Yeah. Oh God. At least that's the only time that I went to Port and didn't get stung by a stingray. Not a stingray, a jellyfish. So,
Oh,
I take a stingray over the jellyfish. They sting forever. The sting doesn't go
I've never
away.
even been stung by a bee. How have you been stung by so many things?
The Texas coast is not like a paradise of the coastal experience, I will just say.
Right.
It
Oh my
typically
gosh.
smells of salt, which is good, decay, which is less good. There are a lot of washed up dead things for sure. The shells are also broken. It is very painful to walk into the water until you get past like the seashell, like the broken seashell bed. And you have to shuffle because, like I said, there's stingrays. There are Portuguese man of war, mainly are the jellyfish that are out there. And they'll sting you even on the beach, like when they're dead, like if you step on the tentacles. So you like have to like watch out because they're also dead everywhere.
Right.
That's really all you super have to worry about. There are some sharks in the area. They don't typically bother people. But like the Texas coast, it's not like the big problem is that the water is not super clear. So you can't see what's in there,
Right.
Gotta
Adventure.
hope for the best. Yeah. It depends. Some days you get like really green or blue water depending on what the currents are doing. Like if you get like water coming in from like Florida, then you get like really beautiful blue and green water days where it's still not like Florida clear, but it's clearer and really pretty. But most days it's like muddy brown. So it's still refreshing to be at the beach, and I love the ocean and I talk to the water, but sometimes things try to bite you and sting you, and you can't
Beware.
So yeah, there's my warning if anyone's ever been like, woohoo, party in the Gulf of Mexico, which I don't know who does. Mostly it's just because that's the beach we can afford to drive to.
Yeah, fair.
And I grew up going to Port and there's tons of like great food. There's this Cajun place down there I'm so excited to go to. They do like a big crawfish boil, and they'll just like put on like a big like paper tablecloth, and they just dump the whole giant pot of just like vegetables and crawfish, and I'm so excited.
Yay.
Yeah, but anyways, not that anyone asked, but I'm gonna try and be doing some of my reading when I'm not getting stung by stingrays or jellyfish.
Cool. Sounds like a good plan.
I think so. Yeah. Anyways, is there anything else you want to share with the listeners?
Nope.
All right. Well, if you guys liked this episode, or if you didn't hate it too much, if you guys wouldn't mind going below and giving us 5 whole stars, that would be amazing. You guys can leave a review. You can tell us what you loved about this. You can tell us what you super loved about this. If you hated it, we don't want to hear about it. I'm just kidding. Constructive criticism is mostly welcome most of the time.
Be nice, but it's fine.
Be nice, but it's okay. Criticism is understandable. We're both very used to rejection, so you can't hurt our feelings. You can try, it won't work.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, exactly. But if you guys want to reach out, you can do that on social media as well. You're always free to message us on there. We're on TikTok and Instagram. We're the Scripturient Society. Loads of funny stuff, loads of really encouraging stuff, helpful tips and tricks. If you guys are writing just to keep you motivated, are on there. So go follow it. If you are a writer or you spend any time writing, should go follow us on social media. It's all thanks to Karissa. So she's the Scripturient Society queen and the social media queen. And if you guys want to send us a longer message, you can. Or if you guys have a suggestion that you want us to talk about on one of the episodes, you can email us at contact@storysirenstudio.com. That's our production company. You can also go to that website and check out our merch if you want to support the pod. And last but not least, if you guys want to join our writing group on Discord, you can. The link is in the episode description below. That's everything we've got for you guys. So until next week, keep writing.
And we'll see you on the next page.